going back to our conversation from before the break, and your desire would be for local control. Same with me. I mean, this is how we get to this place is crazy. Is there any way to decouple from the feds on this, or do they have the strings of the dollars for the school lunch program?
A couple things, because I don't like to sit back and watch things happen to us. I tend to be out there to see if we don't like something, we need to change it. So a couple things that I've already begun working on and thinking about is visiting with members of our Senate Education Committee and our House Education Committee in North Dakota. And I think the first step will be to have us pass a resolution during this next legislative session asking the USDA to reconsider their new federal guidelines. I know that our Ag Commissioner Doug Gehring has also asked his national committee to ask USDA to take a look and reconsider. So that's the first step, and to try and change it within the system. The difficult part of this is, and if I can back up just a little bit, we talked about Michelle Obama's influence in all of this. To be fair, this new regulation began as a conversation, and it was proposed. This bill was proposed by the chairwoman of the Senate Agricultural Committee. The purpose, though, the original purpose of it was to allow more of our children that weren't able to afford school lunches, that were going hungry because they couldn't afford the full price, to allow more of them to participate in the free and reduced. And so that's where the bill originated. And then Michelle Obama did come on the scene, and she, with her emphasis on the obesity in the United States, she brought new attention to the new nutritional standards. And that's where it all kind of went haywire. So if they're not going to reconsider, the problem... That's who the kids are blaming. I mean, they're blaming her because she's out front on this, so that's why I pass that along, that she is. In typical government, okay, hey, let's start out with a plan to say, hey, some kids aren't getting enough to eat because they can't afford it. Let's fix that. And instead, now we're starving everybody. How's that for insanity? Right. That is insanity at its finest. And you've hit the nail on the head, Scott, when you say that our hands are tied to it. Because the purpose of this bill is to allow those kids that are in the poverty homes and in the economically strapped homes to get a free and reduced lunch. And in order to have this school lunch program and have our school systems reimbursed for those free meals, we have to follow these guidelines. The other piece which very few people understand about education unless you're in it, is many of our special assistance programs, like our Title I money, are based on the number of kids in our school districts that get free and reduced lunch. So even some of our special ed programs are funded by the numbers that are based on school and free and reduced lunches at schools. So it's difficult, but I'm not one to just bow down to say, this is what we got to do. This is what they've given to us. We got to take it. I believe that local control is the best, and where there's, in a situation as basic as food for our kids, there's no reason that we don't keep fighting to change this back to more reasonable. Yeah,
just once I'd love for one of these to, I always understand the reason for it. The federal government, their strings and everything else. Okay, I just once I'd love to have it be challenged, to say, look, we're going to feed our kids the way we think our kids need to be fed, and make sure that they have enough protein, that they have enough calories, based on what we believe is best for them. We'll consult with the parents, we'll have PTA meetings, we'll have school board meetings, but we're going to have a community conversation about this. We're going to do what we believe is best for our kids. We don't like the new rules? Sorry. And by the way, try and stop sending the dollars here for it, because then we'll challenge you. I'd love a fight like that once.
You know what, Scott? And I think that I've been on the School Boards Association, associated since I've been a school board member, almost a decade ago. This issue is probably the most passionate issue that I've seen among school board members and superintendents in my 10 years of working with them. They are ready to take that type of action because it is probably the most extreme example of federal intervention in our local schools and messing with our North Dakota kids that they've ever seen. We are having a conference, our annual conference, that we set our legislative platform at the end of October, at the end of this month. And we have heard and we feel strongly that there will be a resolution coming from the School Boards Association to take a strong stance, just what you were talking about, Scott.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, I've never seen any reaction like we have over the, since school started. When we started talking about this, folks are really understandably concerned about it. I mean, starving our kids in the name of, new standards in nutrition, and, it's crazy. 2 ounces of protein? Come on.
2 ounces
850 calories?
They're assuming that all kids are the same physical activity level, and we know that that's not true. North Dakota kids are active, and they're also assuming that these kids are going to be fed at their other meals, which most often, in many cases, does not happen. And we can't have those assumptions.
And now we have an ag secretary who says, we'll fix it, we'll give them a snack. And like you say, another federal program to screw things up. Unbelievable. Well, I'm glad you're fighting on this, and obviously well ahead of the curve and in addressing it. So, Kirsten, thanks so much for the update. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate visiting with you. It's always a pleasure.
Kirsten is on the ballot come November. Kirsten Baesler, candidate for North Dakota Superintendent of the Department of Public Instruction, our guest on the Common Sense Club, taking on this issue of insanity from the federal government on rules and regs related to school lunch. We appreciate that very much. We'll keep you posted. Glad to hear we're going to take a stand.